This video is about the artifacts we found in and around the Paugh house. When we graded on the west side back of the house, we found lots of glass and ceramic materials like bottles and plates because they survive after being buried. Most likely the household items we found here were buried garbage. They were mostly late Victorian and early 20th century. If we dug in other areas, we most likely would have found remains from other periods. When we dig for planting around the yard and next door, which was split from this property, we most always come up with marbles, broken dishes, and bottles along with other artifacts from an earlier time. This little room is formed by the bottom of the stairs, the wall of the entry hall, and the outside wall of the house. Margaret Voss's daughter, Jean, called it the library because Margaret kept her books there. It's where I keep the found objects from the attics, wall and ceiling spaces, and the artifacts we dug up. I think I'll rename it the artifact room. This is a beam and part of a stud from under the dining room that, because of grading problems, had rot. I saved them and put them in the artifact room to show visitors how the house was framed. These mortise and tenon joints marked this as a timber-framed house. The mortises were first drilled by hand with a manually powered brace-in bit, then squared off with a chisel. The tenons were first sawed into shape, then finished with a chisel to ensure a good fit. The joints were then secured with a cut nail or spike to secure the joint. I found this insurance company sign in the attic over the kitchen addition. This sign would have been posted in a visible spot on the house. It told the company that the residents were insured by them. I worked for an insurance company, and according to company lore, they wouldn't deploy their fire brigade to residents that weren't insured by them. I'm not sure if that was true in Amador County, as I know there were in our volunteer firefighters. I decided to mount the old knob-in tube electrical components for display. They were still in the house in 2002 when I bought it. There were 3 generations of wiring hooked together at that time. These beer bottles, still with their labels intact, were under the dining room floor. My friend Rurik, a longtime bottle collector and amateur archaeologist, was able to pull them out with a rake between the piles of rock that formed the foundation of that room, and identified them as being made in the 1850s. My supposition is, when the house was being built, the workers had lunched there and left the empty bottles behind. Tennant Stout has been produced by Tennant Caledonian Breweries since the 18th century. The brewery, founded in 1740 by Hugh and Robert Tennant, originally produced stout and strong export ales. They're still brewing and selling as of this time. These are some of the original roof shingles we found in the attic. They're painted red. These shingles that we found from our 1854 house across the street were painted green. This scroll saw, similar to an antique sewing machine, was foot-powered with a treadle. A fire bucket is a bucket filled with water or sand which is used to prevent or extinguish fires. Typically, fire buckets are painted bright red and have the word fire stenciled on them. Often they have a convex, protruding bottom. The rounded bottom results in a strong, directed stream of water when the water is thrown at the fire. The rounded bottom bucket is far more efficient in launching the water at the fire than a flat bottom bucket. Sand would be used on oil fires. This one was hanging here when we bought the house. Thanks Wikipedia. This lawyer's bag most likely belonged to Superior Court Judge Silas Griffith. Shipping labels from the Adams Express Company to him were inside when it fell out of the ceiling as we were replastering. I'll explain how the items that were in the ceiling got there when I do the upstairs video. This is a vent hole cover. These decorated covers were used when the stoves were removed and the hole in the wall needed to be covered. We found lots of artifacts in and around the house, and it would take much too long to spend time on them all, so I'll just scroll through them with a brief caption. Greer's ammonia and bluing were hand-blown in San Francisco in the late 19th and early 20th century by the Pacific Ammonia Bottling Company. They were used for cleaning and whitening. The small bottle between the two Greer bottles was from the Franco-American Hygienic Company in Chicago. They were established in 1889 and specialized in soaps and personal care products. The bottle on the far left is a Listerine bottle. Listerine is named after Sir Joseph Lister, a pioneer in antiseptic surgery. It dates back to the late 19th century. It was sold as an antiseptic for surgery, but later as a floor cleaner, dandruff cure, and gonorrhea cure. In 1914, it became the first over-the-counter mouthwash. Barton's Dye and Shine was a liquid shoe polish, known for its ability to waterproof smooth leather shoes. The Barton Manufacturing Company was founded in 1919 by Warren D. Barton in Waco, Texas. Lee and Perrins is a renowned company best known for its Worcestershire sauce. The company was founded in 1837 by two chemists, John Wheely Lee and William Henry Perrins, in Worcester, England. California fig syrup was a popular laxative in the late 19th and early 20th centuries. It was invented in 1879 by Richard E. Queen and was initially sold by the California Fig Syrup Company, which was based in Reno, Nevada. Chamberlain's cough remedy was produced by the Chamberlain Medicine Company, based in Des Moines, Iowa. It was marketed for the treatment of various respiratory ailments, including coughs, colds, croup, whooping cough, influenza, hoarseness, bronchitis, and sore throat. The remedy was produced around the early 20th century, with specific dates ranging from approximately 1906 to 1918. Floor cloths were used to protect floors from the early 18th century to the early 20th century. In the 18th and 19th centuries, they were hand-painted with intricate designs. Crabapple toilet water was a type of cologne or perfume that was popular from the late 19th to the early 20th century. This doll's head was the first object we found when we pulled up a floorboard in the upstairs hallway. The doll was probably dragged between the joists by a rodent to harvest the straw body for a nest. Some say rats are the best preservationists. Adhesive plasters were the first Band-Aids, developed in the late 19th century and made from cotton or linen, coated with a sticky substance. In 1859, Robert Chesbrough, a chemist, discovered a waxy substance called rod wax in the oil fields of Titus, Alabama, that the oil workers used to heal cuts and burns. He developed a process for extracting purified petroleum jelly and in 1865 patented it. 5 years later, he began marketing it under the name Vaseline. Fellows syrup of hypophosphite was introduced in the 1860s and was sold into the early 20th century. It was marketed as a cure for various conditions such as anemia and nervous exhaustion. This is a kerosene iron and a rodent trap. These irons were used in late Victorian and the early 20th century. This was not in the house. I bought it at an antique store. Susan Allen's hair restorer was sold as a product to restore color to hair. It was sold from her husband's dental practice in New York from 1840 to the early 20th century. This bottle was never opened and still contains the original liquid. Calder's Dentine was a tooth powder. It was made from chalk and soap and flavored with wintergreen. It was marketed for cleaning, preserving, and beautifying the teeth. It was sold from the 1860s through the 1920s. Button hooks were widely used by both men and women. Men used them for buttoning spats and boots, while women used them for long gloves and dresses with multiple buttons. The hook was inserted through the buttonhole to grab the button and pull it through the hole. They were widely used in the 19th century.